In America, in Europe, and in China, there is a plethora, and I mean a boatload of different electric SUVs and pickup trucks or utes that are available in electric form right now. Many of them extremely price competitive. I mean, the Radar RD6 Geely's electric ute, it costs from $21,000 and it's nearly as big as a Ford Ranger. My friends, Toyota Australia say that if they were to make electric vehicles, then Australians would suffer. Here's what their reasoning is, and it's been extremely controversial. There's thousands of comments responding to Toyota. They say Toyota is lying. Well, I want to know what you think about this. Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm the Electric Viking. My name's Sam Evans. Thank you for tuning in. Wonderful to see every one of you. Thank you so much for your support this year. It's been a crazy year. You know, who would have predicted this would have happened? I never would have thought in my wildest dreams I'd be here in this situation. I'm not talking about the YouTube channel, by the way. I'm talking about everything else that you guys know is going on right now. Anyhow, what I find shocking is the fact that Toyota continues to provide us with these bizarre, truly wacky, truly insane sound bites. I mean, right now, Toyota are losing sales. So, Mazda down 50% in China. Mitsubishi down 65%. Honda down 38%. I mean, these companies are being slaughtered in their biggest market, which is China. And even the same thing is happening here in Australia. For example, Toyota sales are down again this month. They keep on losing market share here in Australia, where more Australians apparently love Toyota. They love them to death. They're obsessed with Toyota. I mean, Australians have been we have been totally brainwashed by the Toyota virus. Now, when I say the Toyota virus, what I mean is the misconception of Toyota as being a reliable company. If Toyota were truly as reliable as what people claim, they wouldn't have had as many class action lawsuits. In fact, Toyota has been in court for class action lawsuits over problems with in particular, their diesel engines, which Australians have loved for a long time. Diesel engines now for 9 straight years. They've had to pay out billions of dollars. Now, if Toyota vehicles were really as reliable as they say, this would not have happened. Toyota would have provided a fix to all the DPF engine problems that they've caused, and well, customers wouldn't have been left in the dark with this. My experience is totally different. My first car that I ever bought when I was 19, I got that one from my uncle actually, and I blew the head gasket. I wasn't even driving it hard straight away. Replaced that, got that fixed, blew it again. Then my neighbor also had a Toyota vehicle, and that was a rebadged Holden vehicle, which is a rebadged General Motors vehicle. So Toyota basically took a GM vehicle in Australia, rebadged it, and called it a Toyota. Those things were terrible. They had shocking reliability. I mean, this whole misconception of Toyota being this super reliable brand, in my opinion, is not really fully honest. I believe Toyota have just spent hundreds of millions of dollars in marketing to believe you that, oh, what a feeling, we're so reliable, oh, what a feeling, is something you should believe. It's a myth. It's called myth making. And now Toyota are perpetuating this idea of myth making. It worked well for them in the past. They were able to create these myths that we as a society easily believe. We seem to be easily led as a society to believe in myth making. And Toyota is now saying that simplistic electric-only policies will leave ute, meaning pickup trucks and four-wheel drive SUV owners, behind. Backroom lobbying in Canberra over a future emissions policy has reached new heights, they say, as the relationship between the car industry and the Breakaway Electric Vehicle Council has hit a new low. Toyota Australia has doubled down on calls for a broader technology approach to reduce future vehicle emissions, rather than adopting an electric-only policy by the middle of next decade, amid concerns such a hardline measure would leave owners of utes, vans and four-wheel drives behind. So Toyota are lobbying against Australia coming up with a 2035 ban on anything except electric cars. Now, I'm not talking about just driving them. I'm talking about buying new ones. Toyota is saying that in 12 years' time, they won't be in a position, nor will anyone else, of being able to provide you as a customer with compelling electric pickup trucks, utes, SUVs, four-wheel drives. The ones that are available right now in America, there's lots of them. The ones that are about to come out very soon. The ones that are all available in China. The ones that are available in Europe. Now, for some reason, Toyota won't be able to make those for 12 years. And still in 12 years' time, they still won't be able to do it. It's too hard. And this is true. They don't even have a single dedicated electric vehicle platform. You can see why they're lobbying. You know why they're lobbying? Because they know they're losing China. They know they're going to lose America because of the EV changes to California, for example. California is by far the biggest car market in North America. They're going to lose Europe. So they're thinking, how do we hold on to these other places, these satellite locations? Yes, people in Australia buy a lot of Toyotas. Yes, in Indonesia, we sell a lot of them, but very small margins on the cars people buy there. We sell a lot of Toyotas in these Southeast Asian countries. We've got to focus our lobbying efforts on the countries where we think we can continue to dump subpar gasoline-powered vehicles in 2035 and beyond. That is their clear strategy. The federal government in Australia has commenced a 6-week consultation period with the automotive industry. The first step in the planned rollout of stricter vehicle emissions targets to bring Australia closer to world's best practice. Right now, it's true. The media constantly says this. Australia is a dumping ground for vehicles with poor emissions quality. It is. Our emission standards here are some of the worst in the world. They're worse than the emission standards in Russia, for example. Unfortunately, though, the automotive industry has been split into two factions in Australia. The peak body that represents all car makers and a breakaway group called the Electric Vehicle Council of Australia, which, despite its name, primarily represents energy providers and recharging networks, and a smaller number of automakers such as Tesla, BYD, MG, the car manufacturers that find it easy. I mean, Audi, the ones that are Mercedes, the ones that have no problems with this. Audi and Mercedes, they're going to be EV only by 2030 anyway, so they don't care. It's just the companies that are, here's what it is. It's Japan. I said it. I'm sorry, you're going to say you're racist, you hate Japanese. Well, it's Japan. The Japanese are just not interested in EVs. They're making piecemeal efforts towards them. They're hoping they don't lose Australia's car market because they own Australia's car market. It is primarily Japanese cars, but that's shifting towards Chinese cars. And they can see that happening. It's shifting away from the Japanese car makers towards Chinese cars. So basically, Australia's lobbying market, it's controlled primarily by the companies selling lots of cars in Australia, which currently are, this is changing, but currently are Toyota, Mazda, Subaru, Nissan, Mitsubishi. You get my point. In the lead up to the start of the consultation process, the Electric Vehicle Council of Australia, it's claimed by media, was caught out claiming to make representations to policymakers on behalf of the entire automotive industry, when in fact it had only canvassed a few, but not all, of its handful of car company members. Now, this is all going to be vastly different. I think that we're kind of squabbling over nothing here, because by the time we get to 2035, if Toyota doesn't have a compelling electric SUV or a compelling electric pickup truck, no one will buy them. It'll just be that simple. It'd be like walking into a mobile phone shop when everyone's selling iPhone 14s and saying, no, I want a Nokia 3310. Who does that? Yeah, maybe 1 in 100 customers. It would be very rare. Maybe you get like a backwards hick redneck from, in the middle of Australia who hasn't even heard of EVs, doesn't watch the TV, doesn't have the internet, it doesn't care about new technology. And they'll say, yeah, I want one of those old pieces of junk, which, sorry, that's what they are. The world moves on. It's like saying I want a horse and cart. People did want horse and carts in the 1940s, 1950s. People still had horse and carts. Probably the Amish, right? There's still going to be some Amish type people getting around Australia, but the vast majority of Australians will have moved on. So in 2035, Toyota won't have a hope in hell of actually selling cars, or a lot of them, unless they actually do what these reforms are meant to do: provide people with better products. Confidential documents obtained by Drive revealed the Electric Vehicle Council had lobbied policymakers to adopt near impossible emissions reduction targets that would have left Australian motorists with little choice but to buy an electric car by the middle of next decade, by introducing hefty financial penalties to discourage customer demand for utes, fans, and four-wheel drives. Now, obviously, Drive here is a media organisation. The way they exist is this: they would not exist if it were not for other people advertising on their websites. Now, they exist also by recommending cars or recommending you to buy a car, right? So car companies pay them a commission on those sales. Plus, they get paid for advertising on their site. So they have to be seen to be supporting these car manufacturers and to be condemning the new wave of EVs, because Tesla don't pay them jack. Tesla pay them nothing. These new EV companies, they have so much demand. They don't need Drive. They don't need to advertise on Drive. They don't need to advertise using mainstream media because people want their products. Now, Drive claims this. They say when the Electric Vehicle Council was confronted by a number of car companies, including a handful that were also members of the breakaway group, about the hardline stance, I don't think it's hardline at all, 2035, that's 12 years away, the EVC supplied a document that excluded 2 pages that outlined among the harshest emissions reduction targets in the world. They're saying that by 2035, they're not going to ban EVs, but would have harsh emissions targets. Now, I personally think we should be banning gasoline-powered vehicles. Gasoline-powered vehicles absolutely should be banned in 2035. So should diesel. We know the health risks. The World Health Organization has said they cause cancer. I think it's fair to say 12 years from now, there'll be plenty of choices, plenty of options. And if you as a car manufacturer don't want to come to the party, then you can leave. That's what I think. So this backroom brawling resulted in Toyota Australia being accused of lobbying against the rapid rollout of electric vehicles amid delays in the introduction of its own models. Now, I believe Toyota spends more money on marketing, in fact, I know for a fact, than any other car company in Australia. They have done for the last 30 years, and they still do today. Clearly, they're controlling the editorial team here at Drive, which is very, very unfortunate, disappointing. And I can say whatever the hell I want because I don't support anyone here. I don't care who markets on this YouTube channel. If Toyota don't do any marketing on my channel, somebody else will. It doesn't make any difference to me. So I'm going to give you the truth here. Toyota will continue to lobby against EVs here in Australia. They'll say whatever they need to say, and they'll try and get as many journalists on board as possible who are basically in their pocket. This will continue to happen up until people decide not to buy them anymore, which is inevitable. Now, Toyota has, of course, rejected outright any accusations of running interference, but they have been convicted several times over the past few years, even by worldwide organizations, as being the company worldwide that spends more money on lobbying against clean air, against EV adoption, against improving the planet than any other company in the world. In fact, they spend more money, significantly more, on lobbying against these things than oil companies. Toyota is here when it comes to lobbying. Everyone else is down here. This has been fact-checked numerous times. In an interview with Drive, though, the head of sales and marketing for Toyota Australia, Hanley, said this: "I'm scared of losing my job. I'm scared my company won't exist." Oh, no, sorry, I didn't say that. I'll tell you what he really said. "We strongly support the electrification of vehicles. We know we have to accelerate to get to zero-emission electric vehicles eventually. That's not a debate. But we don't have any electric vehicles to sell in Australia, and we won't anytime soon." And no, sorry, I didn't say that. It's actually true, though. They don't. Toyota have no EVs for sale in Australia, so you can understand why they're lobbying against them. He continued to say, "But we don't have to electrify them in only one way," said Mr. Hanley, citing options such as hybrid and plug-in hybrid technology, as well as synthetic and hydrogen fuels. By the way, if you're not aware, I made a video talking about how Toyota has combined with Saudi Aramco to develop their own so-called clean fuel. It's just gasoline that they say will be manufactured using carbon capture technologies which don't yet exist. So it's one of those voodoo products. "Advocating an electric car only future is simplistic," he said. "We don't believe it's in the best interest of consumers or the environment. We need to have a much more mature discussion that focuses on carbon dioxide emissions as the enemy. We know the car industry is changing. We know community expectation is changing. We know government legislation on fuel efficiency, fuel standards, and emissions is coming." Of course, this is a way to simplify it and target anyone who lobbies against internal combustion engine vehicles. Are people really saying carbon dioxide emissions are the problem? Or are they saying NOx emissions, which are caused in massive amounts by Toyota's vehicles worldwide, their current fleet right now, cause cancer? They cause, in fact, millions of deaths every year. That's been confirmed by the World Health Organization. Toyota has zero interest in your health. None. Zero. There's not a slightest concern for them. They have an interest in this, being able to pay off their debt. They're the most indebted company in history. They have $190 billion in debt, and they have assets that will be worth peanuts within 10 years. Assets that produce products that aren't the future of the automotive industry. It's like Nokia with massive production lines spitting out old products. They have to change, right? They have to change. Toyota has a big problem, enormous debt, and the ability to make products that only do one thing, have internal combustion engines. When asked if Toyota was confident the federal government and policymakers would introduce achievable emissions reductions targets or deliver harsh measures that would force motorists out of utes, vans and four-wheel drives, Mr. Hanley said this: "If you look at government across the world right now, governments in every jurisdiction have adopted standards that reflect the specific conditions that apply to their market, including customer choice, vehicle use and travel distance. Australia is no different, except that mandatory standards are being introduced later. We understand that means our rate of improvement. We will need to be relatively aggressive on that path towards net zero. But while we have some similarities to markets such as the US, the UK and New Zealand, an Australian fuel efficiency standard has to be calibrated to our market and take into account geographical location, the vehicle types demanded by consumers, the absence of local manufacturing, distance between major population centres, our road network, our infrastructure, and cultural and historical factors." He said, "Is Toyota trying to stop electric cars? No, we're not. We just don't want to leave hundreds of thousands of our customers behind on the journey. That's all." Now he goes on to say this: "There are a lot of people who tow caravans and they'd be happy to go to an electric vehicle tomorrow if it could tow 2.5 tons. And then have to worry about having only a 150 or 200 kilometre range and a price tag well over $100,000. There are hundreds of thousands of Australian consumers who drive four-wheel drives, who use them for work, who tow, who rely on earning a living with their four-wheel drives. Whether they be Toyota or other brands, who'll be very thankful that someone's representing them to government." Of course, this isn't about that. This is utter baloney. It's so easy to get caught up in this kind of marketing garbage. It's absolute, complete baloney. Because, yes, sure, that is relevant today. Absolutely, I don't argue with that at all. But we're talking about 12 years from today. 12 years. Already, CATL have batteries that can power pickup trucks for 600 miles easily. By 2035, you'll be seeing pickup trucks with ranges in excess of 1,000 miles. That will be common. Just look at the trajectory we're seeing right now. Look at the continued advancements in battery energy density, the continued reduction in the prices of batteries. The reality is here, Toyota is only interested in marketing to you today nonsense that you may think, oh yes, this is all true because it's relevant to me today. Yes, today. But we're talking about 12 years into the future. So Toyota are trying to misdirect you by focusing on how you'll lose out today when it has no relevance to 2035. When asked if Toyota, which represents 1 in 5 new cars sold in Australia, has been the market leader here for the past 20 years and is the world's largest automaker by volume and spends more money on marketing than any other company in Australia, had a louder voice when it came to lobbying policymakers, Mr. Hanley said this: "We have a voice, just like the lobby group on the other side of the debate has a voice." Now, this is the same thing that Toyota Japan says as well. However, the CEO or the president of Toyota has always been the president of the Japanese automotive industry. And they in fact guide the policy and the decisions of Japan's automakers. All the companies I've listed that are in massive danger of bankruptcy within the next 10 years. And unfortunately, the truth is, because those car makers have followed Toyota's direction in Japan, they're now screwed. Toyota will never ever take responsibility for what they've done to their country once it's burning in flames, which it will be. If you think this is insane, you simply need to have a look at the Japanese economy. It relies wholeheartedly, more than any other country in the history of the planet, on the automotive industry. Approximately, experts say, 80% of its GDP relies upon the automotive industry in some way, form, or shape. And If they lose the majority of that, they are utterly screwed. If only 50%, if they only have a 50% reduction in sales, which would be an absolute miracle by the time we hit 2035, even that would decimate the Japanese economy. So Toyota is basically dragging down a country, and it's doing the same thing here in Australia. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching.